"You're not allowed in here." The woman at the front desk said it without looking up at first. Then she looked up and said it again, slower this time, like poverty had poor hearing. The boy standing in front of her tightened his grip on the plastic folder in his hand and tried not to let his face show what his stomach already felt: hunger, shame, hope trying not to die. His name was Micah Brooks. He was 16 years old. His shirt was white once, but after too many washes in cheap soap and too many nights drying on a broken window handle, it had become the tired grey of something that had worked too hard. His black tie was too short. His jacket didn't match his pants. One sleeve sat higher than the other because the jacket had belonged to a taller man years ago. His shoes were polished as well as broken shoes could be polished. He had spent nearly an hour making himself look like someone a rich company might let stand near its carpet. Still, the receptionist looked at him the way people looked at rain leaking through a luxury ceiling. "I'm here for an interview," Micah said. The woman finally set down her pen. "For what?" "Building maintenance trainee." She raised an eyebrow. He opened the folder and slid forward a printed email confirmation, slightly wrinkled but readable. She glanced at it, then at him, then back at the paper, then at him again, as if the email had made a mistake by attaching itself to this face, this suit, this skin, this level of visible need. "This interview is on the 32nd floor, she said. "Yes, ma'am. That floor is restricted." "I know," she leaned back. "And yet you came anyway." Micah swallowed. "Yes, ma'am." Behind him, men in tailored suits moved through the gleaming lobby of Sterling Tower, with coffees in their hands and conversations about numbers too large to sound real. He could smell polished wood, expensive perfume, fresh ground coffee, and money. Money had a smell in places like this. Clean, cold, protected. Sterling Tower rose over downtown Brookhaven like a threat made from glass. It belonged to Nathaniel Sterling, white billionaire, real estate king, hotel owner, media investor. The kind of man whose name made newspapers sound respectful and employees sound tired. Micah knew all of that because he had searched the company for 3 nights straight in the public library after seeing the job listing taped beside a broken bus stop bench. Asterisk, asterisk, no experience required. Willing to train. Asterisk, asterisk. Those 4 words had felt like a door. A small one, but still a door. At home, his mother had coughed through the night while pretending she wasn't in pain. Their rent was late. The electricity had flickered twice that week. The medicine bottle on the kitchen shelf held 2 pills. The refrigerator held half a lemon, tap water, and determination. So yes, he had come anyway. The receptionist pressed a button under her desk. "Security to front lobby." Micah's chest tightened. "I'm not here to cause trouble." "No one said you were." She gave him a thin smile. "I'm preventing it." That was when people nearby began looking. Not at the building, not at the elevators, at him. A poor black boy in a borrowed suit standing too close to power. A scene always draws an audience. 2 security officers approached. One older, heavy-shouldered, expression already bored. The other younger, fit, eager, and therefore worse. "What's the issue?" the older one asked. The receptionist tilted her head toward Micah. "He claims he has an interview upstairs." Micah held out the paper. "I do." The older guard took it, glanced at it, then frowned. The younger one smirked. "Maintenance trainee?" Micah nodded. The younger guard looked at his shoes. "Sure." The older guard said. "ID?" Micah handed over his state card. The younger guard read the address and gave a little laugh. "That neighborhood still standing." Micah said nothing. He had learned early that answering certain people only gives them better angles. The older guard handed back the card. "You can wait over there." Micah looked toward the elevators. "My interview's at 10. "It's 9:56, the guard said. "You can wait." "Where?" The guard pointed toward a row of chairs near the revolving door, far from the main desk, beside a potted tree and a vending machine that sold sparkling water no poor person would ever buy. Micah stood still for a second. The receptionist saw it and smiled again. Not kindly, victorious. "Problem?" she asked. He looked at the elevators, then at the guards, then at the glass reflection of himself in the marble wall. Thin, tired, trying. A person can get used to disrespect, but that doesn't mean it gets lighter. He walked to the chairs and sat down. 10 o'clock came, then 10:05, then 10:12. No one called his name. The younger guard walked past twice just to glance at him. The receptionist answered calls and occasionally looked his way as if checking whether embarrassment had forced him to leave yet. It hadn't. Micah had not taken 2 buses, skipped breakfast, and ironed his borrowed shirt under a hot cooking pot, just to walk away because rich people preferred their poor invisible. At 10:18, he stood up. The older guard immediately stepped into his path. "Sit down. My interview started 18 minutes ago. We'll let you know." Micah lifted the printed email. "It says report to 32. The younger guard came closer. It also says business attire. Guess rules are flexible. A few people nearby laughed quietly. Micah's ears burned. Please, he said, and hated how the word sounded. I just need the job. The older guard's face didn't change. Sit. Micah looked past them, up at the long bank of elevators, at the people entering and exiting freely, at the polished wall with the company motto in silver letters. Asterisk, asterisk, we build the future, asterisk, asterisk. He thought about his mother, Lena Brooks, standing at the sink last night because lying down made her cough worse. He thought about her saying, if they give you a chance, don't let fear waste it. He thought about the rent notice on the counter. Then he stepped around the guard. The younger one grabbed his arm. Micah pulled free. I'm not stealing anything. You're trespassing now. I have an interview. The younger guard reached again, harder. Micah twisted away, and in one quick burst of desperate movement, slipped through the opening elevator doors, just as two executives stepped out. The older guard cursed. Stop him, but the doors had already begun to close. Micah jabbed the button for 32 with a shaking finger. His reflection stared back at him in mirrored steel. He could hear his own breathing. He could hear the guards shouting from below through their radios. For 10 seconds he felt insane. For 11, brave. By the time the elevator reached the executive floor, he was both. The 32nd floor was quieter than the lobby. Too quiet. Thick carpet swallowed footsteps. Glass offices lined the hall. Art hung on the walls that looked expensive because it was confusing. Women in fitted suits typed behind sleek reception pods. Men with tablets moved fast and never smiled. The elevator doors opened, and every head turned. Micah stepped out alone. That was enough to stop the floor. He knew what he looked like to them. Wrong. Out of place. A stain walking. A blonde assistant near the far desk rose instantly. Can I help you? I'm here for the maintenance trainee interview. Your name? Micah Brooks. She checked a tablet, blinked, then looked at him again. The same reaction. The same small disbelief. This way, she said. Micah followed her down a glass hallway into a conference room larger than his entire apartment. 3 people sat waiting at the long table. One middle-aged HR manager with a severe bun. One operations supervisor with a square beard and tired eyes. And at the far end, a man who had not been listed in the email. White, 50. Silver dark hair, sharp jaw. Navy suit cut so cleanly it made the room look less expensive. Nathaniel Sterling. The billionaire himself. Micah knew him instantly from articles, interviews, and a giant framed business magazine cover in the lobby downstairs. He was not supposed to be here. The HR woman began. You're late, Mr. Brooks. Micah looked at the guards now arriving breathless behind him. I was downstairs. The younger guard spoke immediately. He forced access. Nathaniel Sterling, who had been reviewing a file without apparent interest, finally looked up and stood. The chair rolled back softly behind him. No one else moved. Not the HR woman. Not the operations supervisor. Not the guards. Nathaniel Sterling was staring at Micah as if the building had just opened a door to the dead. The billionaire's face changed. Cold professionalism vanished first, then certainty, then color. His hand tightened against the edge of the table. Micah frowned. He had expected annoyance, expulsion, humiliation. He had not expected a rich man to look frightened. Nathaniel took one slow step forward. What, he said quietly, is your mother's name? The question hit the room strangely. The HR woman blinked. The guards exchanged looks. Micah stayed still. What? Nathaniel's voice was unsteady now. Your mother, what is her name? Micah did not answer immediately. Years of being poor had taught him that powerful people do not ask personal questions for harmless reasons. Why? Nathaniel swallowed. Please. Something in the word made the room stranger. Micah looked at him more carefully. And now that he did, he saw it. The eyes, not the color, the shape, the line around the mouth when waiting for bad news, the way one eyebrow sat slightly higher than the other when tense. Tiny things. Nothing. Too much. Lena, Micah said slowly. Lena Brooks. Nathaniel Sterling closed his eyes like the name physically hurt. When he opened them again, they were wet. Actually wet. The richest man in Brookhaven looked at the poor black boy in the borrowed suit and trembled. The HR manager stood halfway. Mr. Sterling. He raised one hand to silence her. Still staring at Micah, he whispered, How old are you? 16. Nathaniel let out a breath that sounded almost broken. 16. He repeated it inside himself like a sentence handed down too late. 16 years ago, Lena Brooks had stood outside a courthouse in the rain holding his coat and telling him she was pregnant. 16 years ago, he had told her he needed time. 16 years ago, his father had told him a woman like that would destroy everything he was building. 16 years ago, ambition had dressed itself as logic, and he had worn it. He took another step forward. The guards moved nervously, unsure whether to intervene or disappear. Nathaniel looked at Micah the way a drowning man looks at shore he had mistaken for fog. "Leave us," he said. The HR woman hesitated. "Sir, the meeting." "Leave." Everyone obeyed. Because power still obeyed him, even if his own past never had. Within seconds the room emptied, except for Micah and Nathaniel. The glass walls showed moving shadows outside, people pretending not to stare. Micah held the folder tighter. "Am I in trouble?" Nathaniel gave a short, disbelieving laugh. "No." "Then why did you stand up?" The billionaire looked at him for a long moment, long enough that silence started feeling heavy. Then he answered, "Because I know your face." Micah's throat tightened. "That's not possible." Nathaniel's eyes dropped briefly to the boy's hands, Lena's fingers, then rose again. "I knew your mother." "Knew?" "Yes." "How?" Nathaniel's jaw moved once before the truth came out. "I loved her." Micah stared. That should have sounded ridiculous. It did sound ridiculous. A white billionaire in a glass tower, saying he once loved a woman who now counted pills in a dark apartment and lied about food to protect her son. But the room had stopped feeling normal the moment he stood up. Micah heard his own voice ask the question before he could stop it. "Did you leave her?" Nathaniel did not flinch from this one. "Yes." The honesty made it worse. "Why? I thought I had time to become someone worthy of her." Micah laughed once. A hard, angry sound. "And how'd that go?" Nathaniel looked around the conference room, at the skyline, at the building with his name on it, then back at the boy. "Badly." Micah felt something twist in his chest. Not belief. Not yet. But not dismissal either. He looked toward the door. "I came here for a job." Nathaniel nodded. "I know. My mother doesn't know I took 2 buses." Nathaniel nodded again. "I know. We need rent." This time the billionaire's face cracked in a way money could not repair. Micah saw it happen. Saw the exact second the man understood that while he built towers, his maybe son had been calculating bus fare against hunger. The boy took one step back. "You keep looking at me like you lost something." Nathaniel answered softly. "I did." Micah shook his head. "No, I'm the one who lost something." He meant a father. He had not planned to say it. But once said, the sentence remained between them like a blade. Nathaniel looked at him with naked regret. "Does your mother know you're here?" "Yes." "What did she say?" Micah answered without thinking. "She said if they treat you like you don't belong, make them say it to your face." That broke something in Nathaniel all over again. Because Lena had always said brave things while bleeding quietly from invisible wounds. Micah turned toward the door. "Am I getting the job or not?" Nathaniel stood very still, then said, "You were always getting the job." Micah frowned. "What does that mean?" Nathaniel walked to the conference table, picked up the interview file, and looked down at the printed application. Asterisk. Asterisk. Micah Brooks. Emergency contact. Lena Brooks. Father. Deceased. Asterisk. Asterisk. His hand shook on the page. Then he looked up. "No one with your last name was ever going to be turned away from this building again." Micah's expression changed. The sentence had said too much. Or almost enough. Outside the conference room, the younger guard was still watching through the glass. Inside, the billionaire and the boy stood facing each other across a table full of carefully arranged lies. And Micah understood, with a coldness that moved straight through his bones, that this was no longer a job interview. It was the beginning of an answer. He asked the question quietly. "Who are you to my mother?" Nathaniel Sterling opened his mouth, and for the first time in 16 years, did not know how to begin. The silence after Micah's question felt louder than any shouting could have been. "Who are you to my mother?" Asterisk. Asterisk. Nathaniel Sterling stood at the far end of the conference table with the job application still in his hand, and for the first time in years the man who could answer reporters, investors, judges, and politicians without blinking found himself defeated by one 16-year-old boy in a borrowed jacket. Micah did not move. He was tired of rich pauses, tired of powerful men acting as if silence was depth. Outside the glass walls, assistants moved through the executive floor pretending not to look in, which meant all of them were looking in. The younger security guard stood near the reception desk, whispering to the older one. The HR manager kept glancing toward the room while speaking urgently into a phone. None of that mattered. Only the man in front of him did. Only the answer did. Nathaniel finally set the application down very carefully, as if sudden movement might break whatever fragile chance remained in the room. "I was," he said slowly, "the man who should have stayed." Micah stared at him. That was not enough. It was honest, maybe, but it was not enough. "I didn't ask for poetry," Micah said. "I asked who you are." Nathaniel nodded once. "Fair. I knew your mother 16 years ago," he said. "Better than anyone. I loved her. She loved me. And when life demanded I choose courage, I chose ambition instead." Micah's jaw tightened. "So you left?" "Yes. When she was pregnant, Nathaniel looked at him fully. Yes. The word landed cleanly. No excuses, no softened edges, no attempt to step around the filth of it. Micah almost hated him more for not lying, because now he had to decide what to do with an ugly truth that came to him dressed honestly. He folded his arms. She told me my father died before I was born. Nathaniel flinched, not because the sentence surprised him, but because he understood exactly what kind of death Lena must have meant. The man she loved probably did, he said quietly. Micah gave a bitter half laugh. Yeah, that line sounds like her. Nathaniel almost smiled through the pain of it. Yes, he said, it does. Micah looked away first. The city stretched beyond the glass behind the Billionaire, bright and silver and cruelly calm. Cars moved below in straight lines. Sunlight flashed off windows. From up here, Brookhaven looked orderly, reasonable, successful. From up here, no one could see overdue rent notices. No one could hear his mother coughing into towels at 3 a.m. No one could smell boiled tap water pretending to be soup. He hated how clean rich buildings made everything look. So what now? Micah asked. You say you knew her. You say you left. You stand up like you've seen a ghost, and then what? I'm supposed to believe I walked into a building looking for a job and found… He stopped himself. A father. The word wouldn't come out. Nathaniel finished the thought anyway. Something that should have found you first. Micah's eyes snapped back to him. You don't get to do that. Do what? Say the right sad sentence and act like it means something. Nathaniel held his gaze. You're right. Micah had expected resistance, defense, maybe even anger. Instead he got agreement again. It was starting to unsettle him. That was the problem with dealing with someone who regretted things deeply. You couldn't fight them where you expected to. He lifted the folder in his hand. I still need the job. Nathaniel looked down at the wrinkled application. You have it. Micah's brow furrowed. Stop saying that like this is solved. It isn't. Then don't talk like it is. Nathaniel inhaled slowly, steadying himself the way men do when they know one wrong move may shut a door permanently. You came here for work, he said. You will have work. That part is not charity. Micah's expression sharpened instantly. I didn't ask for charity. I know. Good. Nathaniel nodded. Good. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then the billionaire moved around the table, slowly enough not to feel threatening, and stopped beside the chair closest to Micah. Sit, he said quietly. Please. Not because I'm your employer, because what comes next should not be said while standing like strangers in a doorway. Micah didn't trust the sentence, but he was tired and confused, and the truth was that his knees felt weaker than he wanted to admit after the elevator, the confrontation, the guards, the stare, the name, the impossible resemblance. He was now trying not to think about too hard. He sat. Nathaniel sat across from him. The conference room, designed for acquisitions and dismissals, suddenly felt too polished for what it was being asked to hold. Micah said, Start at the part where you became rich enough to forget us. Nathaniel accepted the hit. I wasn't rich yet when your mother told me she was pregnant. You had money, I had ambition, Nathaniel said. That's worse in some men. Micah leaned back slightly. He hated how much that line sounded true. Nathaniel continued, I was building my company. I was close to a deal that I thought would change everything. My father was still alive then. He believed weakness was anything human. Love, hesitation, loyalty to the wrong people. He wanted me attached to certain kinds of families, certain circles, certain names. He paused. Your mother was not acceptable to him. Micah's face hardened. Because she was black? Nathaniel didn't dodge. Yes. The room went still. Micah had expected something ugly, some selfish reason, fear, pride, but hearing the words said so directly tightened something hot behind his ribs. And you let that matter? Nathaniel answered at once. Yes. Micah looked at him like he wanted to stand up and leave. You're disgusting. Nathaniel lowered his eyes for exactly 1 second. Yes. Micah laughed, sharp and joyless. You just keep doing that. Doing what? Admitting it. It's all I have left that isn't late. That line nearly landed. Nearly. Micah stopped it before it could. So Grandpa was racist, and you were weak. Nathaniel looked up. That is the cleanest summary anyone has ever given me. Micah did not smile. He thought of Lena Brooks working 2 jobs until her lungs gave out. He thought of her stitching ripped sleeves by hand under bad light. He thought of her saying men with power fear women who tell the truth. Maybe this was what she meant. Did she ask you to stay? Micah said. Nathaniel's jaw shifted. No. That surprised him. Micah must have shown it, because Nathaniel added, she asked me to choose. Micah frowned. And? I asked for time. Micah closed his eyes briefly. Of course he did. Men like that always ask time to do things decent people can decide in a heartbeat. When? The day she told me. And when did you go back? Nathaniel looked at the table. Too late. How late? 5 days. Micah stared at him. 5 days. Yes, you lost us in 5 days. Nathaniel shook his head once. No, I lost us long before that. 5 days just made it visible. That answer sat somewhere between wisdom and self-punishment, and Micah was too angry to sort which. He stood abruptly. I need to go. Nathaniel rose too. Micah, my mother's waiting. I can send a car. No. Let me at least take you. No. The word cracked harder than he intended. He took one breath and lowered his voice. I took 2 buses here in good shoes that still hurt. I can take 2 buses back. Nathaniel looked at the boy's shoes. Split near the sole. Polished anyway. His throat tightened. I didn't know. Micah stared at him. That sentence is getting old fast, and there it was again. The perfect strike. Nathaniel did not defend himself. Could not, because the boy was right. Ignorance might explain absence, but it did not cleanse it. Micah reached for the door. Before his hand touched it, Nathaniel said, Did she know you were applying here? Micah stopped. She knew I was looking. Did she know it was Sterling Tower? No. Nathaniel nodded once, absorbing the implication. Lena hadn't told the boy enough to avoid this building, either because she never imagined he would walk into it, or because even after all these years, the name Sterling still lived somewhere in her as a wound too precise to press on casually. Micah opened the door. Assistants looked away too late. The older guard straightened. The younger one suddenly found intense interest in the carpet. Nathaniel stepped into the hallway behind Micah. Miss Waller, he said. The HR manager turned immediately. Yes, sir. Mr. Brooks is hired effective today. Her eyes widened. But sir, we haven't completed. Complete it. The older operations supervisor nodded instantly, already sensing which direction power was moving. Yes, sir. Nathaniel's voice sharpened, and the 2 security officers downstairs who delayed him, mocked him, and obstructed a scheduled interview. Terminate them. The younger guard went white. The older one stepped forward. Sir, with respect, we were following. Nathaniel cut him off. No, you were enjoying power on someone who looked unable to challenge you. No one spoke. The executive floor had become so quiet that the humming air system sounded loud. The younger guard tried again. Sir, we didn't know who he was. Micah turned at that. Nathaniel's expression changed first. Cold, cutting, almost insulted by the stupidity of the line. Then Micah spoke before he could. So if I was just poor, it was okay. The question dropped into the corridor like a hammer. The younger guard had no answer. Neither did anyone else. Nathaniel looked at the head of operations. Remove them now. 2 internal security officers appeared within a minute. That was how rich buildings worked. Consequences arrived fast when the right people were inconvenienced. Micah should have felt satisfied. He didn't. This wasn't justice. It was proof. Proof that dignity had a price tag, and his only became visible after a billionaire stood up. He hated that. Nathaniel saw it in his face. Micah, I have to go. At least let someone come with you. No. What if your mother? The sentence stopped them both. Micah's expression changed. The anger stayed, but fear moved underneath it now. She had trouble breathing this morning, he said. More than usual. Nathaniel's chest tightened. Was she alone when you left? Yes. How long ago? Almost 3 hours. Nathaniel didn't think after that. He simply moved. Get my car, he snapped to no one specific, and everyone at once. 3 people hurried. Micah stepped back. Don't do that. Do what? Start acting like you can command my life. Nathaniel stopped himself visibly. That, more than anything, convinced Micah there might be something real in the regret. Powerful men do not usually pause for poor boys. The billionaire lowered his tone. Then let me ask, please, let me take you home. Micah hesitated. He hated the idea. Hated needing anything from this man. Hated how fast the world had shifted around him. But beneath every other feeling was one hard fact. Lena had been weak this morning. Too weak. His voice came out rough. If this turns into pity, I'm getting out of the car. Nathaniel nodded at once. Fair. The ride to the east side took 28 minutes. Micah had never been inside a car that quiet. The seats were soft enough to make him angry. The windows shut out traffic, sirens, shouting, all the sounds that usually came free with poverty. Nathaniel sat across from him in the rear seat instead of beside him, which Micah appreciated more than he wanted to admit. For most of the drive, neither spoke. Brookhaven changed block by block outside the tinted windows. Glass towers gave way to older buildings. Luxury storefronts to check-cashing places. Fresh stone to broken pavement. Nathaniel watched it all like a man touring a city he had funded, but never truly entered. Micah watched Nathaniel watching and hated that too. Finally Nathaniel said, "What does she do now?" Micah kept his eyes on the window. She cleaned offices before she got too sick. Did she stop recently? 3 weeks ago. How have you been managing? Micah gave a short laugh. We don't call it that. What do you call it? Tuesday. Nathaniel looked down. That was answer enough. A minute later he asked, School? I go. Regularly. When the lights are on and the buses work and my mother doesn't collapse. Nathaniel closed his eyes. Micah saw the guilt hit him again and almost wanted to stop answering. Almost, but pain wanted witnesses sometimes. Especially old pain. My grades are still good, he said, before you ask. I wasn't going to ask. You rich people always ask that. Nathaniel looked at him. I know you're smart. Micah frowned. How? Nathaniel's expression softened with something like grief. Because Lena was. That one got through. Just a little. Micah looked away so the man wouldn't see it. The car turned down his block. Paint-peeled apartments. Rust-stained fire escapes. A corner store protected by thick plexiglass. Kids too young to be outside alone already outside alone. Nathaniel stared out the window, and Micah felt the embarrassment return like fever. He hated bringing clean people into broken places. Not because the place was unworthy, because their faces always said the same thing. Shock, pity, distance pretending to care. The car stopped. Micah was out before the driver could open his door. Nathaniel followed. The building smelled like old pipes and fried oil in the hallway. Micah climbed the stairs 2 at a time. Nathaniel followed more slowly, touching the rail, seeing the chipped paint, the broken bulb on the second-floor landing, the patched water stain near the 3rd step. Apartment 3B was at the end of the corridor. Micah knocked once. No answer. He knocked harder. Ma? Silence. His fear rose instantly. He shoved the door open. The apartment was dim, curtains half shut, a glass on the table, medicine bottle on its side, and Lena Brooks collapsed beside the kitchen counter. Micah's voice broke. Ma? He dropped to his knees. Nathaniel was there a second later. Lena's skin was hot, her breathing shallow. A red stain marked the dish towel near her hand. Micah looked up, all his anger burned away by panic. Do something! Nathaniel pulled out his phone. For the first time in 16 years he did not hesitate. And for the first time in Micah's life, the man who should have come sooner was finally in the room when everything broke. The ambulance reached Mercy General in 11 minutes. For Micah, it felt like an hour. He sat beside his mother, gripping her cold hand while paramedics worked over her. Masks on, voices fast, machines beeping. Nathaniel Sterling sat across from him in pressed clothes that suddenly looked ridiculous inside an emergency vehicle full of real problems. Micah did not care that the man was a billionaire. He cared that his mother's eyes were closed. He cared that blood stained the towel. He cared that every breath she took sounded borrowed. Stay with us, Miss Brooks. BP dropping. Raise oxygen. Micah's chest tightened. Ma, wake up. Her fingers twitched once, then still again. Nathaniel leaned forward. She's hearing you. How do you know? I don't, Nathaniel said quietly. But keep talking. Micah hated him for saying the right thing, so he did it anyway. You still owe me dinner, Micah whispered. You said if I got the job we'd eat real food. No response. The sirens screamed through traffic. Nathaniel looked out the rear window like he could force the city to move faster. For the first time in decades, money could not speed up what mattered. Mercy General's emergency doors burst open. Doctors rushed Lena through double doors. Micah tried to follow. A nurse blocked him gently. You need to wait here. That's my mother, and they're helping her. She was coughing blood. I know. You don't know anything. The words came out louder than he meant. People turned. The nurse didn't flinch. She simply pointed to a chair. Sit before you fall. Only then did Micah realize his legs were shaking. He sat. Nathaniel remained standing nearby, not close enough to crowd him, not far enough to disappear. Exactly where guilt stands when it wants to be useful. Minutes dragged, then an hour, then another. Micah hadn't eaten all day. He hadn't breathed properly either. Nathaniel returned with vending machine snacks and bottled water. Micah glared at them. I'm not hungry. Nathaniel set them beside him anyway. People say that when they're scared. I said I'm not hungry. I know. Micah looked away. 10 minutes later, he ate the crackers. Nathaniel pretended not to notice. Dr. Lena Torres entered just after midnight. Sharp eyes, fast steps, no patience for drama. Family of Lena Brooks? Micah stood instantly. I'm her son. The doctor nodded. And you? Nathaniel answered after a pause. I'm trying to become useful. The doctor blinked once. Strange answer. Fine. She checked the chart. Your mother has severe pneumonia, internal bleeding caused by untreated damage, and exhaustion. She collapsed because she has been pushing past limits for months. Micah's face drained. Is she going to die? The doctor looked at him carefully. Not tonight. His knees nearly gave out. Nathaniel exhaled for the first time in hours. She needs treatment immediately. Dr. Torres continued, and rest she should have had long ago. Nathaniel stepped forward. Anything she needs, authorize it. The doctor looked at his suit, his watch, his face. You rich? Yes. Good. Then be quiet and pay. She walked away. Micah almost laughed through tears. Lena woke up in a private recovery room at dawn. Sunlight slipped through the blinds. Machines hummed softly. Micah slept in a chair beside her bed, folded awkwardly with one hand still touching the blanket. Nathaniel sat across the room in silence. He had not left once. Lena opened her eyes slowly, then saw him. Still dramatic, I see. Nathaniel stood. You're awake. Unfortunately for some people. Her voice was weak but sharp enough to cut. Micah stirred. I'm here. He rushed to the bed. You scared me. Good, she whispered. Build character. He laughed and cried at the same time. Then he looked between them. Neither adult looked ready. So he asked the question that had waited all night. Is he my father? Silence. Then Lena answered. Yes. The room changed. Even though they all knew, hearing truth aloud makes it heavier. Micah swallowed. You lied. I protected you. From what? She looked at Nathaniel. From disappointment. Nathaniel accepted the hit. Micah turned to him. And you? Nathaniel didn't hide. I failed before I even met you. Micah's jaw tightened. That's not enough. I know. Then stop saying that. The shout cracked across the room. Machines beeped faster. Micah backed away, breathing hard. You both had 16 years to be honest. Lena reached toward him weakly. Micah. No, he pointed at Nathaniel. You built towers while we got evicted twice. He pointed at Lena. You let me bury someone who was alive. Tears filled his eyes. I spent my whole life missing something I didn't understand. Then he ran out of the room. Nathaniel found him on the hospital rooftop. Wind hit hard across the city skyline. Micah stood at the edge staring over Brookhaven. Go away. Micah turned. You don't get to chase me now. Nathaniel stepped closer. You're right. Then why are you here? Because I should have chased a long time ago. Micah hated how close that came to breaking him. You don't know me. No. You don't know my favorite food. No. You don't know what grade I'm in. No. You don't know the first time I got beat up. Or when I learned to shave. Or when the lights got cut off and I pretended it was fun. Every sentence struck clean. Nathaniel took them all. You're right. Micah laughed bitterly. That's all you say. Nathaniel nodded slowly. Because truth is all I have left. Then he did something no one in business had seen him do in 30 years. He got on his knees. Micah froze. The billionaire looked up at the poor black boy in borrowed clothes, eyes wet, voice broken. I cannot ask you to call me father. Wind moved between them. I cannot buy back birthdays. Traffic sounded far below. I cannot erase hunger. Micah's throat tightened. But if you let me, Nathaniel's voice shook harder, I will spend the rest of my life earning a place in yours. The city seemed to go quiet. Micah had imagined this man cruel, cold, arrogant. He had not imagined him small enough to kneel. He looked away because tears were rising, and he hated crying in front of anyone, especially him. Stand up, Micah muttered. Nathaniel stayed still. Please, I said stand up. Nathaniel rose slowly. Micah wiped his face angrily. This doesn't fix anything. I know. Stop saying that. Nathaniel almost smiled through tears. Yes, Micah shook his head, then said the first mercy he had given all day. You can start with breakfast. Nathaniel laughed once. Real, shaken, deal. 3 months later, Sterling Tower looked different. Not the glass, not the marble, the people. Nathaniel had launched a city hiring program for struggling teens, paid apprenticeships, school support, transportation included. No interviews based on suits, no receptionist gatekeeping. No one turned away for looking poor. The woman from the front desk was gone, the younger guard too. Micah started as a maintenance trainee. By choice, he refused special treatment. He learned wiring, repairs, systems, schedules. He also learned that rich buildings break constantly. They just hide it better. Lena recovered slowly, in a new apartment with sunlight, proper heat, and medicine she no longer had to ration. She still insulted Nathaniel weekly. That helped everyone heal. Micah never moved into Nathaniel's mansion. He made the billionaire visit his neighborhood first, then his school, then parent meetings. Then a cheap diner where Nathaniel ate burnt pancakes without complaint. Why are we here? Nathaniel once asked. Micah answered, to see if you only love me in expensive places. Nathaniel never forgot that line. 6 months after the interview, Sterling Tower hosted a public event. Scholarships announced. Youth jobs expanded. Media everywhere. Nathaniel stood at the podium, Lena beside him, Micah in a clean suit that actually fit. A reporter asked, Mr. Sterling, what changed your company? Nathaniel looked at the crowd, then at Micah. A boy came for a job interview, he said, and exposed everything that was broken. The room applauded. Then another reporter turned to Micah. How does it feel to be heir to a billionaire empire? Micah shrugged. I just wanted a paycheck. Laughter spread. Then he added, but if this place helps kids like me now. He glanced at Nathaniel. Maybe he finally stood up for the right reason. Even the cameras caught Nathaniel wiping his eyes. That night, long after the event ended, Micah and Nathaniel stood alone in the empty conference room where it all began. Same glass walls, same skyline, same long table, different men. Nathaniel looked at the chair where Micah first stood, nervous and hungry. You changed my life. Micah shook his head. No, he looked directly at him. I gave you a chance. Then he picked up his tool bag and headed for the door. Halfway out he stopped. Without turning back, he said casually, Good night, Dad. Nathaniel froze. The door closed behind Micah, and for the first time in his life, the richest man in Brookhaven knew exactly what wealth felt like.